We might as well go live now. Hey everybody, you're live with Griff. Welcome to the stream today. It is August 4th, 2020, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. If you're hanging out in the chat, say hi. If you're just lurking, just, say yo, whatever, use an emoji. I don't care. I'm just glad you're here. It's been a very rainy couple days here in Southeast Virginia. We just got hit by a hurricane last night, and I don't know if anyone out there in the chat has ever gone through a hurricane before, but hurricanes are fun, especially when they kind of go right over you. We didn't get hit with the proverbial eye of the hurricane. It was a little bit west of us, but we did get a lot of wind and a lot of rain. And I think at the time it came over where we are in Virginia, it's I don't know. It was middle of the night when it happened. So it was somewhere between a Category 1 hurricane and a tropical storm. Either way, it's a lot of wind. It's a lot of rain. There's no real big difference between a tropical storm and a Category 1 hurricane. The differences are just a matter of numbers. 70 mile per hour winds versus 80 mile per hour winds. Either way, when the winds are that high, your house shakes. I lost count of how many hurricanes in my lifetime because I've always lived in this area. We get 2 or 3 a year, and it's just a thing that happens, and it's really just a matter of how close to home does it get. But I remember some hurricanes when I was a kid, and I wish I could name it, but I forget the names of the hurricanes 3 days after they go away. But I remember a hurricane so bad, we were walking. I was on the sidewalk. And I was trying to walk towards my house, and the gusts of wind were so high they were pushing me backwards. It was very difficult to make it all the way home, and I will never forget that as long as I live. So when the wind starts picking up, I go inside. I try to pick up everything around the house that I can, or outside the house, and we just kind of waited out. But we came up pretty unscathed. Nothing flew into the house. Nothing fell down. A couple tree branches here and there, but nothing out of the ordinary. So it put a damper on me trying to stream yesterday because I ended up knocking off early to go take care of the house and just some of the important things you have to do. But we are back today. That's all that matters. And I have a couple things I'd like to talk about. So first things first, let me switch over to my screen. There we are. I am doing a user group talk tonight for the Central Maryland Association of .NET Professionals, or CMAP. I love this group. I have been speaking at this group in person for years, probably going on 10 years now. I've spoken at their code camp. Well, that's been probably 5 or 6 years since the last one, but I've spoken at their code camp. It's a generally good group of people, and I would love for you to hang out with me there if you want to. It's free, open to the public. I'll drop the link into the chat. But I'm going to be talking about 21st century background services with Azure Logic Apps and Azure Functions. And if you haven't seen me do this talk yet, it's really entertaining. It's a lot of fun because I talk about the whole concept of background services in general and why, when we as developers kind of approach them, we make things more difficult on ourselves than they necessarily need to be. And I've learned with several of my clients that moving things over to Azure Logic Apps, I can just knock some stuff out quickly, and it works, and I don't have to write any code, because the times I get into trouble in my profession is when I write code. So if I don't write code, stuff is less likely to go wrong. And I want to talk about some of those scenarios I've run into. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I hope you can make it. Free registration, all that. So that's a big thing I have coming up. Actually, let me check the calendar. Do I have anything else coming up this week that's important? I am speaking with the good folks over at C# Corner. So do I even have that link handy? they've been tweeting it off the hook. So let me find the tweet. Here we go. And also, going to be talking about background services with Azure Logic apps. And I'm going to drop this link into the chat. But more interesting with this one is it's a Ask Me Anything type situation. So I'm going to talk Logic apps for 20 minutes, and then they're going to ask me a bunch of questions and learn more about me. But the C# Corner audience is awesome, and I'm looking forward to interacting with some of those folks and answering any questions that they might have. So that's coming up. And anything else? Jeez. No, that's all for this week. Next week, what do I have next week? Nothing next week. Good. Whew. But the week after that, I have this little conference called Codapalooza. Let me go to Let me find the website. Here we go. So Codapalooza.com. This is a paid conference, but it's all virtual. I want to drop the link in the chat for that as well. But I am doing 2 talks. Let me find my lovely face, Griffin. There I am. I'm doing 2 talks. So I'm not doing Logic apps. None of that. But I am talking about single page architectures with Vue and ASP.NET Core, which is a very fun talk for me to do. I enjoy that one. And then also better database object mapping with Dapper and .NET. So if you're interested in either of those sessions, buy a virtual ticket to Codapalooza. Come hang out with me. I did an interview series with Chad, the guy who runs Codapalooza. He might even be in here lurking. So Tail Learn Code, if you're out there, say hi. Let's do a shout out to Tail Learn Code. See if my shout out. Yeah, my shout out is working. Malachi, thanks for the lurk. Thanks for hanging out with us. So go follow Chad over there. He's been doing daily, sometimes twice a day, interviews with the different speakers, and they're a lot of fun. So go check out that. But all right, I think that's all I have for today. So let's jump into some actual content. If you've tuned into the stream at all over the past couple of weeks, I've been working on a new course that's focused around building APIs in ASP.NET Core. Having a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of content, and last night I delivered a module that talks about model binding and model validation. You all on the chat helped me kind of flesh out that content, answer some questions, and these sort of courses are really interesting to me because I have a way that I use ASP.NET Core, and I've learned over time that my way is not the only way, and it's been fun for me to kind of dive in more to the documentation, things that I thought I already knew, and learn, there's these caveats. I could do it the way I've been doing it, and that's fine, but then there's this other way that's may or may not make sense depending on the circumstances. Because when you're doing training material, you want to gauge a couple things. You want to show them the most likely path that they'll take going into to an application. You want to show them here are a couple detours, different ways you could do things that make sense within the limitations of a 1-200 level course. And then maybe every now and then show them a couple things that are just good to know if you run into those situations. Then there's a lot of things in the documentation that just don't make any sense for a 1-200 level course. And my job as the course developer is to determine what those things are and whether or not they should go into the courseware. Maybe I show them off in a demo, or maybe I just don't talk about them at all. There's a lot of things in ASP.NET Core you could learn from the documentation that you would just never learn in courseware. So today I want to talk about our next section. And our next section is going to be on basically response types and error handling. So the last module talked about model binding and model validation. When you send data to an API in ASP.NET Core, and you have an object that you want to bind data to, how does that happen? And it depends. Is it coming in through the body of a request? Is it coming in as JSON? Is it coming in as XML? Is it coming in as form URL encoded, or is it just coming in as plain form data? Are you sending things through query strings? Are you sending things through headers? All these are pieces of information that you can bind to inside of a controller action. And it took a lot of time for me to kind of spell out, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you can do that. And it all fell in with my rule set of this stuff I would do in an actual application on a regular basis. So I figured it was useful to know. The validation was fun because we walked through a process of, all right, I have this model and he had just set some basic domain rules to it. So let's go add some model validation. And I'm starting to appreciate ASP.NET Core so much more because I'm learning the nuances that I wasn't necessarily aware of. That and just model validation that it will do for you automatically, as long as your controller is, if you have a controller and you have it typed as API controller. I never realized how much that attribute does for you until getting into the nitty gritty of building some of this stuff out. I am still, for a lot of pieces, stuck in ASP.NET Web API land. And even though a lot of those concepts transfer over to ASP.NET Core, I find myself going back and kind of relearning things just so I can teach them. But this was amazing. It's like, all right, you add this one attribute. And sorry, I'm not at my full font size. Let's fix that. There we go. There we are. So everyone can see at home. I lost my train of thought. So, but API controller does a ton for you. I didn't even realize that. I was just adding it to controllers, and it was doing things. But with data binding and validation, I didn't realize how much it was doing for you. Because I'm used to writing controllers where I do my own validation checks. So I know the validation happens automatically, but I am just programmed to go check the model state to make sure it's valid. I didn't realize that when you use API controller, it does that for you automatically and sends back a 400 bad request if your model is invalid without you having to do anything. And that's really cool. So today we're going to talk about response codes. In particular, if I have a controller action and it returns an action result, we'll say get products. Well, you've seen the example many times. You just return an OK response. Well, let's talk more about what that OK response means. And there's a couple different ways that we can handle this. ASP.NET Core handles, in fact, 3 response types. So there's ActionResult that you can see all over the place. You might also see the async version of it. So async task, ActionResult. Technically the same thing, just one's async, one's not async. There's also public. We could return, no. We can return an object. So a list of products and call it get products. It's not going to let me. We'll just call this get products 2. And this is going to get upset at me because it doesn't know about generics. All right, so get products 2, we could return a new list of product. And that's valid. That will actually default to a 200 OK when it returns. But then there's this weird in between, like, well, what if I want to return an object, but I also want to return a different status code? Ooh, how does that work? So then there's this other one. Let me see. I'm trying to remember how it goes. I think it's just action result of T. And this is the one I don't ever use. So So you can return an OK, or, so there's two cases. You could return, let's just say if true, return new product, else return not found. Yes. So this is yelling at me for another reason. Unreachable code detected, of course. There we go. Okay. Now it's still not reachable, but I tricked the compiler. So this is a cool like in between where you could just use generic action results, and we'll talk about what those are in the course. So okay, bad request not found. There's a handful of them that you would want to use. Just returning the generic object. This is a throwback to Web API in the old ASP.NET days, where you just return the object, and the object getting returned is just automatic status code 200 OK. But sometimes you have a method that's either or. So let's use this one for example. What if this was a case where you were taking in an ID, and that ID was not found? Well, you would want to return a 404 not found. But if your response type is set up as list of product or just product, you run into the situation where you just can't do that. In the old ASP.NET Web API, not core, what you would do is you would throw a new HTTP, I'm trying to remember what it was, the HTTP response exception, and it'd be like 400 or 404. And what that would do is it would interrupt the request pipeline and return a 404. It wouldn't execute any other code. That was just the way you solved that problem back then. And I think it was David Fowler, the guru on the ASP.NET core team. He had a tweets, or might have had a post somewhere that said, look, you shouldn't do error handling, HTTP error handling via exceptions, because exceptions just kind of throw off the stack. And in the way that ASP.NET Core handles pipelines, you just don't want to do that. It'll just screw up everything. Because one of the things I think that happens when you do exceptions, and this is just my basic understanding, is because you have the request pipeline, things in this pipeline can tie into request future. So if use developer exception page could tie in to an exception handler down the line. That's how you get pretty exception pages when you're in development mode. Well, if you have stuff tied into it and you throw an exception, it could bypass some of the things in that request pipeline. What you want to do instead is you want to just return the proper results. So if leave exceptions for actual exceptions. So if something goes wrong, return your 500 internal server error. But if it's something you control, you should return the proper response code or status code. And so this is not the way to do it. So they took that out. But they had to add a way to give you that opportunity to change the status code if it's not going to be at 200 OK. And I love this in between of just, we'll call them typed action results. I think that's what I'll call them in the course. And that's probably what they're called in the documentation. It's just typed action results. So you get the best of both worlds. You can return either an object, like I'm doing here, or you return an actual action result. And I think this is cool. All right. So if you remember from our talk last time, I'm basically going to jot down notes as I walk through this process. And I'm probably going to create little screenshots of the different objects. So action results. So everything we just talked about, I'm going to write down. 2 is just, it's a type to response. Actually, do the ASP.NET Core docs have a name for it? If they have a name for it, I'll use their name instead. Web API apps, yeah. Format specific action results. No. So I am going to talk about object or content negotiation a little bit later, but not yet. All right, the accept header, and not what I want. Not what I want. Yeah. So here's an example of something I might not talk about in the course. Response format URL mappings. You can designate a format on a response or on a route, and if you have it configured, it will automatically change to a formatter. I don't know. I might talk about this because I want to talk about accept headers, because one of the things you can do. Let's say I'm doing this, list of product. Actually, all 3 of these would do the same thing. If I'm the client making the request into the server and I tell it I want to accept JSON, well, it assumes JSON by default anyway and returns JSON. There are these weirdos out there that still use things like XML. And if you use XML, I'm sorry, but XML is still another way to describe content that is coming back from a server. So if you're talking in XML and you want the API to talk to XML, you can tell ASP.NET Core, I talk XML, please talk to me like I'm XML. And it will. And you don't even have to do anything in code. A lot of that just happens behind the scenes automatically via content negotiation. You never get text messages until you go live on the internet in front of half a dozen people, right? So, all right, typed responses, action return types. This is what I want. So a specific type. All right, I'll just use type then. I won't talk about nuanced stuff like this, like returning IEnumerable. Yeah, but I will talk about ActionResult type. All right. Yeah. Okay. And action result T. All right, so they're just using generic. So I'm going to say typed response, and then I'll do. I'll just say action result T. I like all of these options, and let me go ahead and pull in the samples. What are you complaining about? Actual. This markdown lint might need to go soon because it's kind of annoying me. C#, C#. let's go ahead and pull over number 2. So I typed a response. I'm going to change the names of these for the screenshots. And then finally, action results. And I need to spruce up this demo. So this is not what I can do. So product is equal to product repository dot get by ID. There we go. All right, this is good pseudocode right here. HTTP get passing the ID, get product by ID. So if the product is equal to null, we want to return not found. Else we'll just return the product. Actually, you know what? This is a good case to do. Async task action result of products. You have a generic inside of a generic. One thing that I don't do very well in the demos is because it's all fake demo code, there's nothing async about it. So I'm not using the async versions of any of these types. And I should be. And I really don't. And how about this? This is another question for the audience. I don't necessarily talk about async as a thing that you should be doing. I just do it because it's what you should be doing. Should I have a conversation, and this would be the place to do it, have a conversation about async versus non-async or synchronous. So async versus synchronous actions. I don't know. I guess it could be a slide, and it could be a 2-minute conversation. All right. Meh. All right. Let's see what my wife wants now. My wife we homeschool our kids, and today is technically the official first day of their next grade level, and it's not going very well. So, and we homeschool by choice. We don't homeschool because of crisis. So it's business as usual for our family, but getting back into the rhythm of things is really difficult. All right, so we'll talk about the different types of action results. Content negotiation. So let's build a content negotiation demo real fast, because I don't entirely remember how this is even supposed to work. All right, so let's go ahead and say HTTP get to products. You know, I'm trying to be somewhat consistent. API/products. Create a new list of products, and my list of product will have a new product in it. ID is 0, name, log, price $1.99. Oh, it's a decimal, so this needs to be a D. No, an M. Yep, okay. And description. Log. We'll say ID. So this is log number 2, which is just more money. So we have this list of products, which we will just return in the 200 OK. If we run this, and this should just run for me. Yep, cool. I'm actually quite amazed. I've gotten really efficient at using Visual Studio Code for my .NET Core development, which I didn't think I was going to. So we want API/products. Okay, so that works. Now, I can't do it in the browser, but if I go into Postman, you can see I was doing a whole bunch of demos in here. Let's go ahead and set up our GET request and hit send. All right, this returns JSON. But if I look at the header, we'll see our accept. We recommend using this accept, but I can override this. So I can say application/XML. Yep. All right. If I say that and hit send, still returns as JSON, which is not supposed to. But if you go into add controllers and add XML. Is it XML serializer formatters? That's a mouthful. There's a reason it's not on by default. Like, no one does this, but I feel like it's that one thing that I should talk about because it's kind of useful. Yes! Aha! I got back XML. Got back an array of product. An array of product has two products in it. Product and product. All right. So in order for that to do its thing, we need to all right, so we are looking at the accept header, and ASP.NET Core does this for you automatically. At least it's supposed to. Let's come back into here. Let's look at format response data, which I'm going to just take a look at this content negotiation real fast. JSON, or plain text media site. What's plain text? That's JSON. Okay. If the content being returned is null, yeah, 204, no content is returned. The content is returned in JSON unless otherwise configured. That's useful. When the framework detects that a request is coming from a browser, the accept header is ignored. Hey, that's the thing I just remembered off the top of my head. Let's add a stream marker for that because I remembered how to do something without consulting the documentation or Stack Overflow. How often does that even happen? All right. Here's another thing I'm not going to talk about in the course because this could change. By default, you use system.text.json formatters. if you want to use Newtonsoft.json, you have to set up that format support. But if you're developing on a older version of ASP.NET Core, it just used Newtonsoft by default. So this would never go in the course because this is a detail and it's just something you read a blog post on. All right, specify a format. I've never done this before. So the produces attribute. I thought that was something for whatchamacallit. I thought this was a Swagger thing for API documentation. Format. All right, this one I do like. Format filter. Let's try this one. Let's try this example. So let's go back into our app. We'll use format filter and so dot format question mark. Okay. The format filter attribute checks for the existence of the format value in the route data and maps the response to the appropriate formatter when the response is created. I like that. And this is, I've seen this in like Rails and stuff before. This is useful. Special case formatters. Yeah, that's a detail. I wouldn't put that into a course. To restrict the response format supply. So what happens if you ask for XML from this controller? Like, this is something I don't think you necessarily need to do. All right, let's run this example real fast. I want to see if this even works. Let's run. Go back over here. I'm going to delete my accept header. So by default, I get an exception. The optional parameter format is preceded by invalid segment products. Only a period can precede an optional parameter. What? But that's what I did. Hold on, let me go back to the documentation. Huh. Weird. Weird. So if I did products.json, in the segment products.format, the optional parameter is preceded by an invalid segment products dot. Really? So you can't have I don't know if I like this. Let's rerun this code. All right, let's try this now. 404 not found. Not found. That's it. Weird. everything else was working. All right, close all those. We're not using them. Oh, format filter goes on the controller. That's a detail. Maybe that'll fix it. Nope, nope, that didn't fix it. All right. API/products. Make sure I got all my stuff right. Yeah, API/products. .404 not found, but all right. If I remove the format and restart, let's try that again. Send. All right, that one works. So it's the formatter. Formatter's not working the way that I expect the formatter to work. What if I do this? So I'll do it just like the example. id.format ? Long ID. And this will return first or default. So here's an actual example. Product is equal to products dot first or default, where the ID is equal to ID. I'm getting squigglies because I don't have link referenced. So if product is equal to null, I want to return not found, or else I'll just return the product. Okay, so API/product/0 returns the 1. .json returns the 1. .xml returns XML. But why the crap does it doesn't work? Why can't you just get products.xml? So if I say .format, is that what I had before? I can't remember now. Maybe that was the problem. No. Yeah. So this one doesn't work. It's like you need something dot. You need something dot. Yeah, that's not working. XML is not valid. I know. Oh, there's my automatic validation. So well, hold on. Oh, yeah, I know why that's happening. What it's trying to do is it's trying to take XML and it's trying to stuff it into an ID. And it can't because it doesn't convert to a long. And instead of returning a 404, it returns a 400 bad request, which I don't know if I like that or not. Oh well. I mean, again, that's a detail. That's an edge case. I'm still confused. So I guess when I talk about this feature, this content negotiation feature, I need to talk about it in terms of not. Yeah, still, this is weird. Weird. API slash products. Like, why doesn't API slash products slash or products.json work? Like, why doesn't that work? And I don't see anything in the docs that would explain to me why. I almost wonder if that's a bug. Like ID dot format. So empty route. Hey, don't you love it when Stack Overflow has something that might be relevant to your problem? After lots of trial and error. HTTP post or HTTP post food dot format. Huh. Is that you, Rona? All right, let's try that. So what this is saying is it should accept. That's on the controller. All right. I'm willing to try this. That shouldn't be a post. So route API slash products dot format. I don't know. Let's try it. What do you think, chat? See, I want products.json. In this segment, products.format, the optional parameter format is preceded by an invalid segment products. Dot. It's not. I mean, it is, but that should be fine, right? Oh, see, I made that optional. What if you don't make it optional? You just make it a different route. Okay. All right. All right. I see where this is going. This is getting more complicated than I had anticipated it. The route name format appears more than once in the route template. Yes. Okay. What if? Yeah. Here. See, I feel like the optional parameters should do the exact same thing, but we'll give this a try and we'll see what happens. I might not go with this process for the course. I might just do the ID because I can guarantee that will work. Not found. Yeah. But what about just products? See, that works. But products.xml does not. Does products.0 work? Yes. Products.0.xml does work. I'm kind of confused. That Stack Overflow article was not very useful. All right. Was there anything else in Bing? Strathweb. Oh, this is old. I don't know if this is still going to be relevant. Yeah, this is older. This is MVC1. Yeah, we're not even gonna go down that route. Read the docs. Yeah. All right. I think let's try Google real fast. Let's give them some data. Is this just one of these? Yeah, we copied Stack Overflow for SEO. I hate it when people do that. All right. Here's what we're going to do for our demo. We're going to ignore that. We are going to use this entire thing. Let me go over to my notes. Change the accept header. Oops. Change the accept header. If configure services is initialized properly to format extensions. So this is that demo. I still like to get this part working. I might throw a gist together and ask the powers that be why it's not working the way that I expected to. Yeah, that's weird. Okay. Let's take a look back at my notes. Types of results. We discussed that. Content negotiation. Error handling. I had some thoughts about error handling. I don't remember what they are. So basically my idea for error handling is 500 internal server error. Internal servers. Internal server error is a catch-all if something goes wrong. Try to use acceptable HTTP status codes. So 400. So 400 bad request. What's another one? 403 forbidden. 404 not found. Any other 400s that are useful? Let's look at HTTP status codes. I'm a little teapot. Yeah, unauthorized, payment required. I don't use any of those. Payment method, no, not acceptable. Conflict gone. Yeah, the rest of these I don't use. 415, I see that some ASP.NET Core will throw that sometimes if you're trying to talk in the wrong format. 418. No. The server errors, you should never throw a server error. All right, try to use acceptable HTTP status codes for errors. But only when the client can change their behavior. All right, so my working theory here, if I can spell behavior right. My theory here is when you return status codes in APIs, you have basically two situations. You have a situation where the client did something wrong, or you have a situation where you did something wrong, right? And if your client did something wrong, whether they sent a bad request, whether they're not authorized to do something, or they're asking for a resource that doesn't exist, or they're asking for a resource in a format you can't handle, you can send back a proper 400 response code that will identify, here's the problem that you have. Anything else is a 500, and you as the API should not be returning 500s yourself. That's my theory. Hey, thanks for the follow, Mike DPS. Glad you're here with us. Welcome to the Shed Quarters. Did the sound play for y'all? Because the sound didn't play for me. I just happened to see the notification pop up. Oh well, not a big deal. But I am so glad you're here. No sound? All right. Yeah, I saw the little zombie flash up, but it was supposed to make a sound, and it didn't. And I'm not sure why. So, oh well. Not worth trying to figure out now. We'll figure that out later. All right, so 500 internal server errors. Those. Hey, and thanks for the follow. It's just Damien. So those are not errors that you should be throwing yourself. Those are things that the server should be throwing for you because something went wrong that you weren't able to handle. I kind of follow this workflow, and I think this is workflow I've heard from folks on the ASP.NET team as well, is unless you can do something about the exception, you should just let the exceptions go. So don't wrap stuff in a try-catch unless you can do something about it. There are mechanisms in place to capture telemetry if stuff goes wrong, and you actually get better telemetry if you just let those exceptions flow up to the top of the stack. So the only type of errors that you should be responding to should be 400s. So I think that's the way I'm going to go with this. And this is going to be simple. Let's just take a look at the docs while we're in here and see if the docs has anything special about error handling that I might be missing. Handle errors. Developer exception page. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, it's Postman. Exception. All right. exception handling middleware. I could talk about that. Use exception handler. Problem. Ooh, I've actually never done this before. Let's mock up this demo. All right, let's remove all this crap. And what we'll do is we'll throw a new exception. Whoopsie. And then over in startup, we'll just tell it to use exception handler. And we'll pass an error. You never used triple asterisks before? ASP. Ah. Did you accidentally say a word of curse? Well, not even. And it bleeped you out. Gotcha. So Damon, not .net. Gotcha. So I do nothing but .net. What do you work in? All right. We'll throw whoopsie. Let's go ahead and mostly HTML and PHP and a little bit of JavaScript. That's awesome. I dabbled in PHP very early in my career, but I didn't stick with it very long. I didn't like PHP. But what's funny is there were a lot of the ASP.NET Core, or not Core, ASP.NET MVC development I was doing was very MVC or very PHP like, and so I have an appreciation for it because I think a lot of frameworks they all kind of work the same way. I attended a session. It was years ago. It was talking about new PHP features, and I just sat in it because I was curious, and I always like to learn about things I don't work with daily. And the guy was like, "This is why you'll love the next version of PHP." And then he got to the end of the session and goes, "Well, I changed my mind. There's no reason to love PHP after this." And everyone's in there going, "All right, well, okay, cool. That was fun." So it's, yeah, and I haven't done enough serious PHP development to hold any firm opinions. Oh well. Yeah, it's not necessarily about being fun. Does it get the job done? Yeah, it does the job. Exactly. I feel like if you're getting the job done and it's paying the bills, it's doing what it's supposed to, there ain't that much you can complain about. All right. Man, I am a popular dude on the stream. I don't know if anyone else has this problem. You go... Hey, welcome. I'm glad everyone's tuning in now. I'm wondering, did another stream let out and folks are finding me? I hate going through the stream, the people streaming at any particular time, because it's always it's a little disheartening at times, because like, oh man, this other person or this other person's streaming and he or she have 50 people viewing. Like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go do my thing, and the awesome people like you that show up make it all worthwhile. All right, let's see if I can complete my thought here. Whoopsie. All right, so we have whoopsie. Should throw an exception. Actually, let's just take out is development altogether. Use the exception handler. I only use their example directly. On error. Oh, I can't do that in this one. Let's just say public class home controller. Controller base. There we go. I've never used the problem action. That's new for me. Well, let's run and see what happens. Send. Oop, oop. All right. That's supposed to happen. Error occurred while processing your request. 500. Okay. That's nothing special. Oh, I like this. Okay. All right. This is going to help me build a complete thought. Yeah. All right. They're doing some action injection here. Let's just copy and paste this example all together. And let's restart the app. I really should figure out the hot reload for this sort of thing. Why? Oh. Yes. Using system. Oh, interesting. Okay. I see what it's doing. Never done this before. Not like this. But I do like this process. So let's go ahead and hit send. Yep, it's going to throw my exception. Here we go. So you get your 500. The exception title was whoopsie. But it has the full stack trace in here as well. Interesting. All right. I didn't think about using that. So we'll talk about use exception handler. And I don't want to use the just I don't know if I just want to use the example in the docs. Oh, hey, we have an incoming raid from Juju. Thanks for the raid. I didn't even notice that. Sorry. My sound notifications aren't working for some reason. But hey, do I want to be famous? Nope. You can go away. Man. Well, I'm famous to all the 11 folks that are currently watching. I don't know if I want to use the example directly from the docs. That seems a little cheesy. But I do like talking about returning a problem. So maybe I'll format this conversation a little bit differently, which would basically be What kind of API is it? So I'm working on some courseware on how to build APIs. And this module in particular is talking about how you return results. So if you're returning content, if you're returning the type of status codes that you return. And now we're just kind of talking through the last section, which is on error handling. And my goal with a lot of these modules in the course is I obviously can't cover everything, but I want to cover enough where if I want to cover enough of like 80% of the use cases in just regular day-to-day development. And that other 20% is left for reading the docs, or you run into these use cases where you have a very specific question. And so something like error handling, I've had a process for how I've done it in the past. And there are new language features, new platform features that I'm just not up to date on as I probably should be. So I'm learning about some of these new changes, and I'm building the scenarios in my head for if I'm teaching someone how to do exception handling in ASP.NET Core 3.1, this is the process I would use. So that's kind of the thought process I'm talking here. A lot of the modules, they're a narrative. So we start at the beginning and we just kind of build off of one topic and build off the next topic and so on. So that's what we're doing now is we're going to have a conversation about the response codes and then getting errors back from an API. So this problem returns test code 500. That's what it's looking like to me. And I have not. So let's take a look here. You can override the status code though. So there's a status code optional parameter. And sorry for the text. When you bump up the font in VS Code, it just screws up everything. So I could say it's status code 501, and that would work. So it looks like if you just return problem by itself, let's remove all this. So let's pop this out. Let's just do error exception handler by itself. Where's VS? There it is. All right, let's throw in the exception. All right, so that returns, just a 500 and says an error occurred while processing your request. Now that's really generic. You might want to override what that says. So you could come in here and tell it that title so went and we could say what's another one? Is it detail? We'll set not decimal, detail. And these are all nulls by default, so you can put them in any order you want. So you could build your own error handler using problem, which I think is good. Let me clean that up. Let's restart this. Hit send. There's the exception. Yep. So here we go. We have my title, which is what I want it to be. And then boom goes the dynamite. Yay. You could do some smart things here. So maybe for what I like about problem, what I like about the exception handler in particular is that it maintains your stack trace. So you could do some internal logging of all that information and put it somewhere else. But what you send back to the user, like some exceptions, you might not want to use the title of the exception. You could build your own exception type and build out a custom error handler that says, well, if we're using my custom exception, I can trust that the title of that exception could be sent back to anyone. But if it's a more generic exception, say a SQL exception, we don't want to use those titles because those titles might have domain information in them that we don't want to pass to anyone else. I think there's a scenario here where I could do something really unique and not use the code from the docs. So we'll say use exception handler error. We'll say detailed error. And what I want to do for that is this is just generic 500 something happened. But then for maybe a more detailed error, what I'll do is create a custom exception, which those are easy to do. So custom exception is thrown, override the title and description of problem. Okay. So what does that mean for you all? Let's just copy some of the code. C#. And the thing I get to do tonight, which I'm not going to make you all sit through, is I'm going to create slides for all this content. Hey, welcome to the Shed Quarters. Ashtamaz. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. I don't mean to. But I'm so glad you're here. You're hanging out with us. C#. And just a reminder for everyone who might not have been here at the beginning, let me talk about some of the talks I'm doing tonight and this week. So tonight I'm speaking at the Central Maryland Association of .NET Professionals about Azure Logic Apps and Azure Functions, which are two really cool techs that I have put together to kind of emulate background services in a very cost-effective, efficient manner. I love doing this talk. I've done it probably half a dozen times for other groups. And if you like to watch, it's 6:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We'll be going live there. And that should be a good time. I actually need to set up that demo. Maybe I'll do that before we jump off the stream today. Then, let's see. Did I close that tab? I did close that tab. So then next week, or not next week, I think on Friday, I am speaking with the crowd over at C# Corner. Again, doing my Logic Apps talk. But this one's more of an Ask Me Anything. So it's 20 minutes of me talking about the topic. And then we're going to jump into an Ask Me Anything. So, but you all could ask me anything now. You don't necessarily have to show up to C# Corner. But C# Corner is a great community. Lots of great content up there. They've been in the game for a decade, no, 2 decades, just helping people learn about .NET and C#. There's a lot of good material up there. There's also a lot of like really bad material, but let's not talk about that. So there's been a couple of examples on C# Corner where I go, no, you don't want to write that code. Do not copy and paste this. But yeah, and then in 2 weeks, I'm going to be at Codapalooza, and I'm doing 2 talks there. Let me find it. There I am. So Codapalooza. Why is it not secure? Where's my HTTPS? I'm gonna have it. Chad. No. This is not acceptable, Chad. I am going to have a talk with him. So, Codapalooza.com. I'm doing 2 talks there, not on logic apps. The first one is single page application architecture with Vue and ASP.NET Core. It's not very straightforward, and I want to talk about the relationship of a Vue.js app or a single page app versus an ASP.NET Core app, because they are technically separate applications that work harmoniously with each other. And then better object mapping in .NET with Dapper. So this is a database type of talk where we discuss the concept of pulling data out of a database into C# objects that we can use and manipulate in a way that's really easy to do. And best of all, it's not an Entity Framework, because I'm not the biggest fan of Entity Framework. So I want to talk about things that are not Entity Framework. I did an interview with Chad not too long ago where I talked about some of these sessions, just other things that are going on. But that's all on the session page. So if you want to see my sessions in particular, there's the link to it. But very cool. So let's get back into whatever it was I was talking about. All right. Yeah, for problem, what I'm going to end up doing here is... wrong thing in... I'm going to override that problem, but this one we're going to pass in our own title and our own... what did I say it was? Detail. So detail. So I guess I need to have a So error handling in APIs. So if you were doing error handling in a just generic ASP.NET Core application, so MVC, Razor, that sort of thing, you would get the it used to be the yellow screen of death. Now it's like the sad face of death. And that's not useful to APIs because there's nothing to parse. Can I mimic that real fast? So this one... yeah. Does... Oh my gosh, I have too many tabs open. Let me close a bunch of these. Not useful. So error handling in just web apps. I don't see a section for it. All right, I'm not going to go looking for it because I don't think it matters. RFC 7807 compliant payload to the client. Problem details for... Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was a thing. All right. Well, let's... All right, generic web apps usually return HTML-based error pages. Not useful. And the reason they're not useful is that as an API, if I return JSON, and if I return JSON in a format that has an RFC associated with it, you can process that and understand what's happening. This is one of my little quips about APIs, is that not all APIs handle errors differently. The big thing is, here's the big thing. If your API returns an error, return a 500 status code. Or return a non-200 status code as your error. There are too many APIs out there. I'm not going to name names, that return a 200 okay, but the status, the response has an error object in it. And if that error object is not null or undefined, then you know that an error had occurred. But it throws off so many just processes, because if you're returning a 200 okay, you're telling me it's okay. Everything was successful. Everything is A-okay. But if your A-okay is an error, now I have to write special code to handle that. Whereas I might work with other APIs that do it the correct way and return a 400 or a 500 of some sort of failure status code, and they return a proper response when that occurs. So let's use this detail one more time. Let me remove all that exception handler crap. And let's do nothing. So nothing at all. If I just throw the exception, it throws the exception. It's still going to return a 500 internal server error. But but there's no data. So you actually don't know what happened. And this is part of the problem. So when you do nothing, out of the box, ASP.NET Core returns status code 500, but no details. And you kind of want details. Let's move these talking points around. All right, this is actually more information than I thought I was going to cover in this section, but this is good stuff. Yeah. Yep. All right. I actually think we're good here. What time is it? It's 4. All right, it's 4 o'clock. This is actually really good timing because I need to knock off anyway. But I think I'm going to jump on again tomorrow, because tomorrow I need to bust out some slide decks. And tomorrow I'm going to be writing some material around API versioning in ASP.NET Core, which I have some experience with, but that's experience with a couple versions ago of ASP.NET. Not quite sure how that's changed with newer versions, if it's easier, harder, different. So we're going to approach that tomorrow. We should rate someone. So chat, we have a good number of people watching. Do you have a preference on who we should raid? Let's see who I am watching. Nick's Met Science So Nick's interesting. He is. Oh no. Dev Chatter. Dev Chatter is live. Oh, should I raid Dev Chatter, who I haven't raided in a very long time, or should I raid Nick's Mad Science? He's working on a Pelican Python-based static site generator. Let's see. Bald Bearded Builder. I rated him last time, I think. So we'll let Mr. Michael Jolly off this time. Raimu is building I think it was a Rust-based MMO. Stay in the C# field. All right. So we'll go raid Dev Chatter. He's been going for about 2.5 hours, so he's probably got a half an hour left. But all right, we're going to pick Dev Chatter. All right, here are the rules of raiding. If you never raided with me before, jump over to Brendan's channel. Just yell like raid when you get in, and then go back in the lurking mode. Hang out with Brendan for 5-10 minutes, just see what he's working on. Have a little chat with him. Even if you didn't chat with me, chat with Brendan. And if you like him, give him a follow. And tell everyone you came from my channel and that I say hi. So I think everyone's ready. We're going to knock off and go raid Brendan. I will see you all tomorrow, hopefully. Have a great rest of your day.